Okay, so get this, a carriage is bouncing around in the middle of some random woods. Inside, two sisters are talking, and one is like, Alice, you better not act a fool this time. To which she straight up claps back with, look, it wasn't my fault the dessert was so fire last time I couldn't stop myself. That is so Alice Wanger. And for real, how was she supposed to know a few cups of punch would get her that turnt? But Alice is just like, whatever I bet this time will be way better since you're rolling with me. Her sister's like, facts, but you still gotta chill. And that's Khloe Virger, the one who's always got it together. Khloe starts breaking it down. Look, this party is a huge deal. It's Duke Tissy's gig, and you need to lock down a potential fiancé there, like, for your whole future. Alice is super stressed, and goes, I know I have to find a fiancé to save our family from being hella broke. But even with all that, she's always dreamed of finding a guy who, gives her the feels. Khloe grips her cane a little harder and says, sorry. If my leg wasn't all messed up, I wouldn't be putting all this on you, little sis. Alice immediately scoots right over to her sister to make her feel better, saying, hey, that's not on you, so don't even trip. If we're gonna blame anyone, it's our dad. He was so down bad for Mom, he literally blew all our cash on her medical bills and then completely fumbled the bag on managing the estate. Alice also adds, and if you remember what went down 3 years ago, even when we were down bad, Dad let Duke Tissy's entire army just post up at our castle. I mean, he's our dad and all, but I honestly can't tell if he's the sweetest guy ever or just completely clueless. Her sister adds that the tea on Duke Tissy is like all bad. Some new Duke who slayed in a big battle? Yeah, she's calling cap on that. In fact, the rumor is he's got a bunch of secret kids with other women, and as soon as they're born, he quietly makes them not a problem anymore. Plus, they say he has zero chill. If you get on his bad side, he'll just end your whole career and it doesn't matter who you are. A lot of people say it would have been better if he just stayed out there fighting. But Khloe cuts in saying, considering how broke we are, we're hella lucky we even got an invite. Still, Alice is worried that he's the type of, dude, you for sure don't want to mess with, not with all this tea flying around and them not knowing what's real and what's cap. That's why she's low-key hoping the two of them can just dip on him and vibe at the party. As Alice keeps going off about the Duke, Khloe looks kinda bummed, biting her lip. In her head, she's trying to hype herself up, telling herself not to be shook about going to a party just 'cause of her leg. Rewind to 3 years ago in the Virger state where their dad, Viscount Virger, was the big boss of a small castle, all smiles as he opened the gates for the Imperial army rolling back from a battle. As Khloe walked by the soldiers, they were whispering that it was true the Viscount's oldest daughter had a limp. They were even questioning if she could even do anything to help like that. Like she'd probably just be in the way. So messed up. But Khloe just brushed it off and kept helping the injured guys. Some soldiers were even making these gross comments, saying they couldn't complain since she was at least kinda cute 'cause her face was decent. Ugh. Later in one of the rooms, a servant told Khloe her dad wanted her to let the crew handle the injured, and she was like, okay. But even after saying yeah, she sat on her bed feeling super down, wondering if she did something to mess things up or stress her dad out. But since she's a total sweetheart, she just figured the war and all the wild stuff they'd seen was making the soldiers act all on edge. Staring out the window, Khloe was thinking how she always thought nobles were supposed to help out people who were struggling or sick. Then some dude yelling attention outside totally snaps her out of it. A guy walks up. As everyone salutes, they greet the commander. The commander then says that earlier that day he found out that his father, Wilhelm von Tissa, had passed. While the soldiers were freaking out, the commander added that his dad got his head chopped off by the enemy and it was stuck up on the castle walls for everyone to see. Seeing how wrecked the soldiers were, the commander asks if they want to bounce. Noticing one soldier was kinda hesitant, he's like, oh, so I guess you don't want to leave after all. Which made the guy get all awkward and try to say he totally did. The soldier explained that his wife just had their baby and he wasn't there and all he wanted was to just be with them. The commander then looks at another soldier who says he's stressing about his mom because she was sick and by herself when he left. Other soldiers started chiming in, saying they had to work to get money for their families, that their girl was waiting for them. And Khloe, hearing all this, could just feel how much pain every single one of them was in, so the commander is like, okay, hearing all this, I've got like a million reasons for us to wrap this war up ASAP and go home. And that's a big mood for me too, since I still haven't been able to. I get my own dad's body back, never mind give him a real funeral. But then the commander is like, wars aren't won or lost just 'cause God says so, which is exactly why he's not about to back down. He's dead set on doing whatever it takes to get this W for his soldiers. I mean, the whole rep of House Tissy is on the line now. This was Tommen Ernst Vantissi, the big boss and the future head of House Tissy. Khloe, peeping from her window, is low-key crushing on his whole leader vibe. The soldiers are going absolutely nuts when he says it. It's all on them to turn this mope fest into some real action. Khloe's heart is doing backflips thinking, OMG, he's even more of a hottie than I thought. But like, plot twist. While everyone's gassing him up and she's being a total creep from her room, the commander literally spots her. She freaks when they lock eyes, ducks down and straight up holds her breath. So scared he saw her and just dying from the cringe. But her nosy side totally wins, and she peeks again just to make sure she wasn't bugging. But Damian was already gone by then. She's like, phew, dodged a bullet, but still completely starstruck, 'cause let's be real, she could never pull off being that chill right after hearing her own dad just died. So Khloe starts praying like, God, please get these guys home safe to their families. And while our girl is down there having her little prayer sesh, Damian gives that window a double take, pretty sure he saw a girl. Khloe just keeps praying that all their suffering actually means something in the fight. The next morning, Khloe's doing the classic peek out the door move, trying to sneak out and get back before anyone's up. But then bam, someone calls her name in the hall. She turns and it's Giles, the family's helper dude. Her cane totally slips and she's about to eat floor, but Giles swoops in and catches her just in time. So relieved, she's like, OMG, thanks, you're a literal lifesaver. Giles gets all red and changes the subject super fast, asking where she's off to so early. Khloe's just like, oh, just grabbing some plants in the woods. Giles offers to go get them for her, but she's like, nah, you wouldn't know which ones to pick, my dude. So basically, she's gotta do it herself. The poor guy tries again, saying it's freezing out, and her dad would totally flip if he knew she was out there alone. But before he can even finish, Khloe just cuts him off, saying, chill, I've done this a million times. He can tell he's not winning this, so he just tells her to be safe. As he walks off, Khloe's thinking, dang, Giles had a major glow-up since we first met. He used to be this short king who barely came up to her shoulder. The sun's coming up while she's picking herbs and she's thinking, everyone's on their grind, so I gotta do my part too. Like she's gotta pitch in. Then she hears something by the lake. She looks over and get this, it's the commander just staring at the half-frozen water. Khloe's like, what the heck is Duke Tissy doing here? Especially since this is like her secret spot. Anyway, she decides to just dip without bothering him. But of course, as she's leaving, she steps on the one super crunchy leaf in the entire forest. Which makes Damian go, who's there? Khloe gets so jumpy she drops all her herbs. And he asks again, who are you, cat got your tongue or something? As he gets closer, Khloe just squeaks out a sorry, introducing herself as Khloe Virger, the Viscount of Verdier's oldest kid. The commander walks up and is like, I'm starting to see a pattern here since last night. He points out that the Viscount's daughter has a thing for creeping on people like a little rat. Realizing he's hella mad, Khloe apologizes and swears she wasn't spying this time. He then asks if that means she was spying yesterday and even goes, is your dad? Not as innocent as he seems with some kind of agenda. Annoyed by what he's implying, Khloe just looks down and says that's not it at all. Damian totally mocking her questions if that's not it. Then why would she show up playing nurse for the injured and messed up guys? The Verdier house might be low-key, but this kind of gig is not for a noble woman especially. Someone in her condition. Our girl is shook. Is this the same guy she saw and was totally impressed by yesterday? That was seriously disrespectful. She claps back that she was just trying to help the dudes who volunteered to go to war to protect their families, so she didn't think her title would be a big deal. Her late mother taught her and her sister that the Verdier family may be humble, but as nobles, they have a duty to help people in need. Ironically, the commander thinks it's hilarious she's using the phrase behavior of a noble, and to further prove he's a total jerk. He says she never thought that doing something she can't handle is just selfish and ends up being a burden to everyone else. Not done yet, he also says that if she had heard the nasty things the men said while she walked by, maybe she wouldn't be able to keep her head held high and talk about noble behavior. He then asks what the Viscount would do if he had heard. If it were him, he would for sure rip the heads off anyone who dared to trash his daughter's name. Plus, most soldiers watched a bunch of their buddies get torn apart in battle. Like, does Khloe have any clue what that does to a man? And now when the sun isn't even all the way up, she's alone in the forest with that leg of hers. And like, if she got messed up, who's to blame? But our girl, so over his whole vibe, claps back that this spot has been Verdierland since before she was even a thought. So like, that's why no one can just waltz in here uninvited. And for that exact reason, it's safe. But the commander is low-key questioning her use of the word safe. And she's just like, yeah, I said what I said. She's like, yeah, it's 100% safe. Then he grabs his cane and is all, you still gonna have that same energy if I did something like this. And then bam, he just snatches the cane away. This totally throws Khloe off balance and she stumbles right into him. He then uses the cane to take out a snake nearby and is like, a forest is always full of hidden dangers and you are being mad irresponsible for thinking it wasn't. He hands the cane back, saying it's a little jacked up, but it'll get her back to the castle. But Khloe is so not here for it and thanks him for his quote-unquote help. Damian just scoffs like whatever. He laughs and says she's got a major attitude. Then he gets way too close, reaching for her legs to examine her, asking if that feistiness is like a family thing. Khloe immediately tries to back up. She's like, what are you even doing? Why are you being such a creep to me? For a sec, he actually stops and they just have this intense stare down before he finally backs off. Damian stands up and says that she's being way too sensitive, that he was just asking a question, and she took it the wrong way. Letting your emotions run the show will only get you an L, he tells her. The audacity of this dude. Khloe claps back that she's not a soldier, so she's not fighting in some war trying to get W's or L's. He looks at the dead snake and says life asterisk is asterisk a war, especially for someone like her. Khloe, who's majorly pissed at this point, says that even if that's true, it doesn't give him the right to be all up in her business. Of course he's like he was just trying to give her some advice, and the fact she won't even thank him just proves he totally hit a nerve. Khloe doesn't say a word, but she's thinking, okay, this dude is an actual demon, and my first impression of him was so wrong. Holding her dress, she's like, with all due respect, I have exactly 2 things to tell you. And he's all, go on, spill it. Our girl says that first about the cane he just wrecked. She wants a new one. He's quick to say he'll have his woodworker make one once he's back at camp. But Khloe's like, nah, and says she wants a cane made from the birch trees that grow in his Tiz territory. This makes Damian a little sus, but Khloe adds that she remembers him flexing yesterday about how they'd come back with a win from this war. Therefore, as soon as he's back on his home turf and the war is over, she expects him to get that new cane made for her. But before she can even finish, he grabs her face and pulls her in super close. He asks what she'd do if he gave her something way better, hinting that her dad seems to be angling for more. She's so done with him, shoves his hand away and says he's forgetting about point number 2. If my dad was gassing up his daughters to you, you can bet it was 100% proud dad energy. And even though he totally adores us, he's not dumb enough to forget that. The House of Verdier is way lower on the totem pole than the House of Tease. So trust me, you're not the only one who doesn't want to get mixed up with the disabled woman. And she knows that's basically how every guy feels. Aw, poor girl, her self-esteem is totally in the gutter. The commander tells her to save the sob story for her diary, but Khloe cuts him right off. She says it's not a sob story, it's just facts. Limping, she starts heading back to the palace. But before she dips, she says she wants to make it crystal clear that he can feel sorry for her all he wants. He has zero right to just assume she's unhappy, or that her life is some big tragic war. Damian then asks if she's actually happy like this, which makes Khloe stop dead in her tracks. This dude then has the nerve to add that her life is never gonna change. OMG, I'm so ready for him to fall hard for her, and regret being such a tool. Obviously, our girl is not about to let that slide. She says that actually she's totally happy living a chill, steady life in her hometown, and for her that asterisk is asterisk happiness. A while later, Khloe is completely knocked out. She honestly doesn't even remember how she got home, but that chilly morning wind hit her just like that snake in the woods. Gil is right by her side. He's hoping she gets over the fever soon, and tells her that Duke Tiss and his squad already dipped. Smiling Khloe thanks Gil for the heads up. After that, it was a hot minute before she went back to that forest. Okay, fast forward 3 years, and we see Khloe and Alice rolling up to a ball. The Rose Castle of the House of Tiss was next level, and everyone was like, how is it even possible this place is only used once a year and just for parties? Alice mutters that it's ridiculously extra, and Khloe tells her to watch her mouth. While leaning against a chair, she says she's completely drained. But then some dude calls her name, which catches them both off guard. Alice says it's awesome to see Mr. Cormier again. He immediately asks her for a dance, and she accepts with a huge smile. Before they take off, Alice introduces her sister Khloe. Khloe, without even getting up, says hey to the Lord, and he says it's awesome to finally meet Alice's sister. The guy says that maybe they could dance later. But before the words are even out of his mouth, his eyes drop to Khloe's cane and he clocks that she has a mobility issue. And then it gets super awkward. He's like totally shook seeing her whole deal. But Khloe, trying to kill the cringe, just plays it cool, laughing like, yo, watching all these hotties get down is a whole vibe. But she's still like, appreciate the invite for real. The music is fire and Alice is out there on the floor with some random lord. Khloe's actually feeling kind of stoked, thinking maybe everyone has, like, completely forgotten that epic drama Alice started at the last Rager. Plus, this Count Cormier guy seems like a major score for her, cause Khloe hasn't heard any sketchy gossip about him. She is so shipping this, hoping things are finally on the up and up for the fam, and Alice can bag a keeper. Leaning on her cane, she's like, ugh, do I really have to go say thanks to the Duke for the invite? But then she's like, nah, I'd rather just dip on him if I can. But hold up, that's kind of savage since he's literally throwing the party. Right then, Khloe's deadass wondering what the Duke's whole motive was for even inviting them. Like, was it cause her dad hooked them up a solid 3 years back? But when she actually thinks about it, Khloe gets the major icks remembering what he said, straight up calling her an annoyance, which makes her even less pumped to go say what's up since he was clearly not a guy who passed the vibe check. Still holding onto her cane. The only thing our girl wants right now is for him to have completely forgotten she even exists from 3 years ago. All of a sudden, the whole party starts buzzing, and some dude starts coming down the stairs, and Khloe hears everyone whispering that the Duke finally showed up. He walks down sword and all and stops right in front of Khloe, realizing there was, like, zero chance of avoiding him. Especially since he was right up in her grill, Khloe stands up and says hey to the Duke, making sure to just stare at the floor so this whole interaction can be over like yesterday. But to Khloe's absolute horror, he's like, it's been a hot minute. And then he full-on calls her by her entire government name from the House of Verrier. Everyone at the party immediately starts eavesdropping on their convo where the Duke says he totally owes Khloe's dad for the hookup he gave him 3 years ago, and because of that, he'd be super down to thank him IRL. But you know his schedule has been totally slammed lately. He also thanks Khloe for showing up, and the poor girl just mumbles that it's an honor to be there. The Duke clocks the thing in Khloe's hand, which is her cane, and probably remembers that promise they made 3 years ago. But instead of being a decent human and doing something chill, he obviously doesn't, and holds out his hand asking if Khloe wants to dance, which totally throws the poor girl cause literally anyone with eyes can see she has trouble walking and would just not ask her to dance since it would be a whole struggle. All the bougie people start whispering, wondering if the Duke is blind to her cane or if maybe she did some major favor for the House of Thissy since the Duke is making this a whole public spectacle. Khloe, being a total class act, politely curves him, saying she's probably not the best dance partner for him. This clueless dude asks if she's turning him down cause her dance card is full and he's last in line. Trying to just ghost him, Khloe just looks away. But Damon's like, If that's not the reason, I hope you won't say no. Then someone jumps into this super awkward sitch asking if Damian is messing with the girl. It's the #1 Prince Johannes, who for some reason looks thirsty as heck. The prince rolls up and says if the lady already said no, he shouldn't be so extra. Then he drapes his arm over the Duke and asks if his boy forgot how to act after being on the battlefield for so long. Damon just claps back that asking a girl to dance isn't like illegal or anything. Besides, the girl isn't some delicate flower who's gonna cry about it. Our poor girl just stares at the floor, not saying anything, thinking he's the same exact tool from 3 years ago. The prince, realizing Damian's not gonna change his tune, just lets out this massive sigh and says sorry for his cousin being such a jerk. Khloe decides to jump in, seeing this whole thing is about to be a train wreck. So she respectfully asks His Majesty to get it, saying the Duke was probably just worried she'd get FOMO from not dancing because of her situation. He then clocks that Khloe's got more guts than he expected and asks for her name, and she tells him it's Khloe Virger, the Viscount's oldest kid. Then totally out of left field, he puts his hand on her shoulder, all hyped that she's from the House of Virger, and says he'd be so down to meet the Viscount since he's such an interesting dude for raising his daughters, especially the oldest one, to be a rose but with some serious thorns. But Khloe can't even focus, totally creeped out by his hand on her bare shoulder. To make him move it, she quickly does a little bow, saying sorry to His Majesty, cause she came with her little sis tonight, not her dad. In that moment, she realizes it's been a hot sec since she last spotted Alice in the middle of the room, freaking out about where she could be and terrified another drama bomb is about to drop. The prince says he's gotta bounce, but asks if he can meet Khloe's younger sister sometime before he heads over to a group of other rich kids. The prince tells Damian to come with and to lose the salty look on his face. Meanwhile, Khloe is full on panicking, trying to figure out how she's gonna find her sister. The last time she saw her was out there dancing with some random noble dude. But Damian, who's got like eagle eyes, totally spots Khloe's whole stressed out vibe and is like, "Ite, what's got you so buggin'? Duh, it's her sis." Khloe tries to play it off though. She's all, this place is just like massive, I can't find her, I'm gonna go look. But right when she's about to bounce, Damian calls her name again. And listen to this while he's holding her hand, which is like on her cane, he goes, "You remember our little deal, right? That super secret thing we agreed on?" He's totally reminding her it was about the cane, and Khloe just snaps back, "Yeah, well, if you're gonna hook me up with a new one, you could at least let go of my hand." Then this guy gets way up in her bubble and whispers that she shouldn't even trip, cause she'll be getting that cane super soon. And again, acting like some little kid on the playground pulling pigtails, he straight up jacks the cane from her. He's like, "Hold up, this isn't the same one. You got a new one, didn't you?" Then he notices that Khloe this time isn't even fighting back. So he's like, "Guess you're too busy spiraling about your sister to even argue with me." And like he's not wrong. So she just hits him with the silent treatment and looks away. But then plot twist, he offers her his arm to help her walk. Damian's like, "It'd be a total bummer if your sister was, messing up asterisk again asterisk," and offers to help her find Alice since the castle is like freaking huge. And for real, who's a better tour guide than the dude that literally owns the whole joint? Once they're outside, he asks if he's walking too fast. Khloe says no, but it's so obvious she's struggling cause he asterisk still asterisk has her stupid cane. My girl is struggling. The Duke's all like, "Wow, I'm impressed, looks like you've been practicing walking solo," but low-key she's literally shaking and trying not to faceplant. He then says her training must have been brutal. Khloe, who's now clutching his arm for dear life, just deadpans, "Wow, so nice of you to notice." But instead of, actually trying to find Alice, he just keeps throwing shade about how strong she is. He's trying to make it sound like a compliment, but it's total sarcasm, and my girl is just a shaky mess, 100% wishing she had her cane back. Still, she somehow finesses it well enough for them to keep looking for Alice. When they get to the garden, Damian's like, "Whoa, it's kind of windy out here." And then he looks over at Khloe. He asks who did her hair stuff, and she's like, I did." And Damian, this dude, goes, "That explains why it's a total train wreck." Khloe is literally dying inside, but all she says back is, "Can I please have my cane back?" Damian just blows her off and says he heard a rumor some girl was seen running this way, which totally sends Khloe into a panic, cause that sounds exactly like her sister. She's just praying her sister isn't starting some huge drama. Then they hear some asterisk sus asterisk sounds, if you know what I mean. The two of them stop, and Khloe is hit with a tidal wave of secondhand cringe from what she sees. She finds Alice, thank God, but her dress is all messed up, and she's with some rando. A freaked out Alice is trying to push the guy off, but he is not getting the memo and keeps trying to make a move on her. Khloe is just standing there completely shook. She's like, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Alice finally shoves the guy who clearly can't take a hint and tells him to dip before he gets himself yeeted from existence. And this dude has the nerve to say, "I'd die a happy man." Big yikes. Khloe's jaw is on the floor when she hears Alice call the guy Eddie. She totally remembers Alice simping over some interesting bohemian dude she met at the village festival and how she was all, "I really hope I see him again." Khloe can't even and is just wondering how long this whole thing has been a thing. Damian, seeing she's about to lose it, puts a hand on her shoulder and asks if she's good. She just bows and is like, "My bad, Duke, seriously sorry you had to see that." After they finally get the guy to leave, Alice tries to play it off like, "Eddie just popped up out of nowhere. I was totally blindsided." Khloe, who is so over it, basically tells her sister to zip it. She apologizes to Damian again and says she needs a private word with her sis, promising to send her straight home. I mean, Alice is already looking super stressed because she knows she messed up big time and is totally busted. Khloe tells her to wait by the carriage, and Alice just dips without even thinking. Damian just watches this whole dumpster fire go down in silence until he finally speaks up. Well, looks like Lord Verdier's second daughter is making waves again. Apparently, Alice has a real talent for starting drama with the upper crust. Khloe, who's literally trembling, begs the Duke to please not spill the tea on what he just saw. And of course, he uses this moment to be a total tool and asks why he should do that. He's like, you know, I wouldn't be against coming down on the whole Verdier family for sneaking some rando into a Duke's crib. Khloe knows things could go south like super fast if she can't get Damian on her side, especially since her fam is already on thin ice. Totally desperate, she just gives in, drops her cane, and literally gets on her knees in front of him. She's like, this is all on me, I should have been watching my sister. So she begs him to just punish her and keep her fam out of it. When he doesn't say a word, Khloe with her head down just says again that she's begging him. And he has the audacity to ask, and what'll you do if I say no? My girl is totally speechless, and you can just tell he's eating this up, seeing it as the perfect chance to mess with her head even more. The protagonist's brain is going 100 miles an hour trying to figure a way out of this. She has to come up with something like ASAP for Alice and her dad. So she starts going on about how the House of Thule is like super legit, and how he the only heir is this total legend of a commander who won the war and was like the first person ever to get a Medal of Merit from the literal royal family. So Damon, who's a total opportunist, uses the silence to tell Khloe he's seriously vibing with their chat. But our girl claps back, reminding him that he once said he'd do whatever it took to get his squad the W and bring all the glory home for his boys. And right on cue, some lord from a random castle opens his doors, rolling out the red carpet and showing some major hospitality for the soldiers. Damon totally picks up what she's putting down, that he should return the favor. You know, since he's from the so-called super honorable House of Tissy. But she's like, nah, dude, telling him she just wants him to show a little heart to a family that's really going through it. The Duke snaps back that he already paid his dues when he invited the Viscount's 2 daughters to the party of the year with all the kingdom's biggest celebs. So basically, Khloe should be pissed at her sis for totally fumbling the bag. But before he can dip, Khloe literally grabs his leg, begging him to hold up. He's like, what the hell are you doing? In a total Hail Mary, she says if he lets it slide this one time, she'll do anything he wants and she'll owe him big time. This was her absolute last shot. The Duke lifts her chin, asking why she's going this hard, and then totally roasts her, asking where that badass girl from 3 years ago went. He adds that grabbing his feet like this and promising to be his beck and call girl is just not a vibe for her. Just then, the party's fireworks explode, lighting up the whole sky. Honestly, if he wasn't being such a massive D-bag, I'd be shipping them so hard right now. But whatever he says, her sister's whole marriage drama is probably why she's acting so desperate, since getting hitched is basically the family's master plan to secure the bag. So yeah, they're pretty much just trying to marry her off for money. Damon asks Khloe what her deal is then. Like, doesn't she give a crap? And she's just like, nah. Because at the end of the day, her happiness is just seeing her family thriving. He gets right up in her personal space, asking if she's really down to do anything for that. And she says yeah. That answer did not sit right with the Duke, not at all. He touches her cheek and says he'll think about what she can do for him, then tells her to bounce. She's like, bet I'm gone. But then it hits her that His Majesty wanted to see Alice. Before she can even get the words out, the Duke says that from now on, if she so much as looks at Johannes or any other dude in the Empire, he'll make her and her entire family disappear. He warns her that this is him being nice. Before he lets her leave, Damon says he'd advise her not to go into that garden with a guy she can't trust, since it's kinda known as the spot for couples to, hook up. Unless he adds she's actually trying to get people talking about them. Then he just pieces out, leaving Khloe on the ground all alone. My girl seriously can't catch a break. All she can think is what a complete tool he is. A few days later, Khloe's in her room writing a letter to Duke Damian Vantissi saying it's been a solid 3 months since she got back from the ball. There's already a bunch of talk about Alice getting married to some young noble she danced with that night. So her family is totally stoked, because the guy is a real one. And since she knows this is all because of the Duke's quote-unquote generosity, she's been stressing about how to pay him back, and she's finally got a plan. At that exact moment, she stops trying to figure out how to phrase this next part just right. But then Gil pops in with some tea and cookies. She asks how Alice is doing, and Gil says she went out early, but after she got home, she locked herself in her room and won't eat anything, claiming she has a stomachache. Hearing her sister went out, Khloe starts to panic, wondering if she went to see that guy again, but Gil says it's probably not, since Alice seems to have finally matured a little. And our girl actually buys it. I mean, she did promise to marry Count Gourmier, and he's a solid dude. So she's positive Alice will be happy with him, way happier than with some guy who's never gonna settle down. Gil then mentions that if Miss Alice gets married, he's worried Khloe will be lonely. With a smile. Our girl says that's not gonna happen because she'll still have him, which makes the poor guy blush like crazy. Seeing him get all flustered, she switches gears and asks for his help with the letter. Mostly because the guy she's sending it to is a total hard ass, and will for sure find something to get pissed about no matter how she writes it. Looking at the draft, Gil says that if he's as bad as she claims, he'll probably throw a fit if the letter takes forever to get to him. They're cut off by her dad busting through the door with a massive grin on his face. He tells her to get ready, because the Duke is coming to their place to go hunting. This makes Khloe literally start shaking just thinking about seeing him again. She feels so cornered as her dad says the news was super last minute, but it could just be because the guy's a total hunting fanatic and their lands are like prime territory for it. A little later, the whole Verdier family is lined up to welcome the Duke. The Viscount asks the Duke if his trip was okay, but Damon just points out that the Viscount has way less staff than the last time he visited. Her dad starts trying to explain it was cause of a crappy harvest last year, but Khloe just cuts him off mid-sentence, switching the topic by saying the castle's a bit of a disaster, since they only found out he was coming at the last second. As he gets closer, Damon agrees, saying that a noble who doesn't even know how to properly host a guest doesn't deserve their title. Later at dinner, the Viscount apologizes to the Duke, saying Alice can't make it. He just replies that he hopes it's nothing major, and that she gets better soon. While they're eating, Damon totally sees Khloe is spaced out and says it looks like she's not feeling the food, wanting to get a reaction out of her again. My dude says it's probably because it's so hot she lost her appetite. Her dad tries to make things less awk, saying his daughter's just nervous with the Duke around, and adds that she's a total nature lover who just likes to chill with a book and nap. Damon's like, so you must know this place like the back of your hand, and her dad totally agrees, saying she knows the forest inside and out. But like there was this one time she came back super sick after spending the day there. Even after she recovered, she kept going back. Damon gives her this look, suddenly super into what he just heard. Her dad, who loves to talk, even says it was around the time they were camping nearby with the soldiers. Jill comes over to refill Khloe's glass and asks if she's okay. Leaning in, she thanks him for the water. Damian is totally not vibing with this whole scene and then says if she knows the forest that well. He wants her to be his guide tomorrow. Her dad tries to shut that down, saying her health will just slow down the hunt. But before he can even finish, the Duke just cuts him off, saying he wants to hear what she has to say for herself. Khloe's panicking, knowing she's totally cornered no matter what. So she says that if she can have a staff member and her horse, she'll be totally down to go with him. But Damon shuts that down flat, saying she's riding with him on his horse, cause for real, he's not the type to follow anyone. The next morning, Khloe's all ready to go, just waiting. Damon pulls up with the horse, telling her to get on with him. She kinda hesitates, sketched out, cause she's never ridden with someone else before, especially some dude she has zero trust for. But he snaps her out of it, telling her to let's go. Handing his cane to Gil, he asks if she's gonna be okay. Meanwhile, Damian is already giving them major jealous looks. During the ride, the Duke comments that she and that servant seem pretty close. Khloe explains that Gil's been with them since he was just a kid. When everyone else dipped because they weren't getting paid, he decided to stay with the Verdier. That's why she says he's basically family to her. Then out of nowhere, he just makes the horse take off. While Khloe is totally freaking out, he tells her to be quick and tell them which way to go. She screams left, and they all just bolt down the trail. As soon as they hit the hunting spot, Damon says it looks like his soldiers caught a massive moose. Meanwhile, Khloe's panicking so hard she can't even hear him, and she's 100% sure he did it just to mess with her. Seeing that Khloe is completely shook, he covers her eyes, telling her to just breathe while she finally lets go of the reins. She starts to calm down, hearing the Duke's voice, and just saying, if he wasn't so ridiculously hot, there's no way she'd be giving in this easily. Later back at the house, Khloe says she's calling a doctor first thing tomorrow. Her dad asks if something happened, and she explains that the Duke got hurt when some wild animal jumped him. He corrects her, saying he actually got bit while chasing it on foot, cause doing it on a horse wasn't thrilling enough. Alice jumps in, saying if it's just a small wound, Khloe can totally fix him up, all while she's chowing down. She points out they don't have any pain stuff, so he's just gonna have to deal. Khloe tries to say the doctor's on the way, but Alice says a bunch of people have been sick, so the doc is probably slammed and he shouldn't be hogging the only one in town. Damon says he definitely wouldn't want to take such an important person away from the locals. After all, he's just a guest. He says it with this total smirk on his face, then asks if Khloe could check out the wound after they eat. She still tries to argue it's better to let a professional handle it. Even the Viscount tries to step in, but the Duke says that way back when she took care of the soldiers, and that picture is like burned into his brain, so he's sure she'll do an awesome job. This gets the Viscount all hyped that the Duke remembers. Looking at Khloe, he says he hasn't forgotten a single thing from back then. This guy seriously loves getting a reaction out of her. Later, Khloe goes into his room with the first aid kit. Damon says that she looks like she's a prisoner on death row. A simple job shouldn't be this dramatic. Ignoring him, she just gets closer and tells him to show her the wound. He asks why she doesn't just find it herself, and she claps back that he could at least roll up his sleeve. The Duke shows her his arm, saying Khloe is more than capable of doing it herself. Our girl says that with all due respect, it's not really okay for a single girl like her to be touching a guy's body. He starts unbuttoning his shirt, saying, I guess you're right. So the shirt comes off, and Damian's all like, I get it, I'm a whole snack, but try not to stare so hard. Homegirl is literally having a full-on meltdown seeing a fine guy shirtless for the first time ever, especially since she didn't even ask for the free show. Trying to get a grip, she starts cleaning the cut on his arm. She's like, this is probably gonna sting. And he just hits back with, I'm kinda hoping it does. She's all like, yeah, I learned some first aid from you, But what's actually been a lifesaver is something completely different. So obviously he's like, oh, really? And what's that? And she deadass says embroidery. The dude actually starts laughing and is like, it's the first time he's ever heard anyone call embroidery useful. And OMG, seeing him smile makes Khloe blush so hard. Gotta change the subject like now. So he asks if her sister's still sneaking out for those late night hangs. Khloe just tells him to stay still so she can bandage his arm. But he keeps pressing her and finally Khloe spills that ever since that night. Ellis 100% learned her lesson. And thanks to the Duke, she's about to get married to Count Cormier. But then he hits her with this bombshell saying if he knew keeping his mouth shut meant she'd ghost him for 3 entire months. He never would have done her that favor. She looks up and the Duke is like way up in her personal space, and all she can stutter is that he's like asterisk right there asterisk. But he's demanding an answer, so Khloe tries to explain that. She wrote a ton of letters but totally chickened out and never sent them. He leans in even closer and is basically like, you're a really bad liar, you know that. Poor Khloe is so flustered trying to push him away. But he will not move and keeps demanding the real story. Finally, she breaks and admits it's because he totally hates her. She's like, I know you think I'm disgusting and can't stand me. And that's why she was scared to send anything, since she had zero clue how to pay him back. So she gets up to leave, says sorry, and tells him the bandage is done. But in a total classic move, the second she stands up, she trips on his shirt that he just threw on the floor. And bam, she drops all her stuff. But before she can completely wipe out, the Duke pulls some superhero move and catches her. Everything she was holding just crashes to the floor. And then, next thing she knows, she's on the bed and he's on top of her. Khloe sees his wound totally ripped open again from catching her. But does he get off? Nope. He's just like, it's fine, you can just patch it up again. Completely trapped, Khloe finally works up the nerve to ask the Duke what the hell he even wants from her. He just takes a strand of her hair and brings it right up to his lips. And he's all like, oh, you know, asterisk, exactly asterisk what I want. Okay, hold up, can we just scream for a second? I know he's toxic as hell, but just get married already, you two. Anyway, our girl turns her head away and says she's only there because her dad told her to fix his arm. And again, he's like, you seriously think that's asterisk all asterisk your dad wanted? Khloe's getting so over it like this is the second time he's pulled this crap. So Khloe claps back that she understands why he's got major trust issues, you know, with the war and everything. But to actually believe that every single woman in the whole kingdom is desperate to marry him is like next level conceited. The look on his face, the Duke is completely shook. Then he starts laughing while still holding her down, obviously, and all she can think is, yep, this guy is certifiably insane. He finally stops laughing and asks if they should, you know, put her theory to the test. Then he helps her up and is like, well, you've done what you came for, so you can get out of here. Back in her room, Khloe is so mad at herself for wasting all that time stressing over an apology letter for that dude. She picks up the glove she was going to give him with the note, and feels like a complete idiot for even considering giving him a present. Thinking about all the messed up stuff he said, she gets so pissed like she should have used a much bigger needle on him. But she calms down and tells herself not to get all worked up, especially since he's the reason Alice is about to marry a good dude. She just looks up at the sky, and our girl is like 100% sure that once her sis is married, everything will chill out and be fine. Cut to the next morning and Alice's jaw is on the floor when she hears the news. She asks Khloe, are you sure the Duke hurt his arm and not his brain? He just sets his cup down and says again, completely serious, that he wants to propose to the Viscount's daughter, Alice Verdier. Their dad immediately tries to shut it down, explaining that she's pretty much already engaged to Count Cormier. Super calmly, Damon just sips his tea and is like, yeah, I'm aware. But that doesn't change my interest. Then he asks if the Viscount thinks he's not good enough or something, since he keeps bringing up things that don't matter. The tension in the room is insane. The dad realizes the Duke is not messing around at all. Still, the Viscount is like, no, it's not that, but I have to respect my daughter's wishes. The Duke finishes his tea, stands up and says he'll give them 3 days to talk it over and give him an answer. And in the meantime, he'll just be hanging out at his villa one state over. He laughs like this is all some kind of game to him, and says he hopes the Verdier family will consider it carefully. Meanwhile, Alice is wrecking her room screaming that she never wanted to be a duchess. But she gets that this is a massive opportunity for their family. Khloe's trying to calm her sister down, completely confused about what the Duke is even trying to do, until she remembers what he said last night. Oh. Our girl tells her sis that she doesn't have to do it if she doesn't want to, and promises she'll talk to their dad and sort this whole mess out. Alice is so relieved she just gives her this huge hug. But she's still freaking out what if I can't get married at all now? What's going to happen to our family? Because now that the Duke proposed her engagement to the Count is completely ruined. And if she turns the Duke down? Khloe cuts her off, telling her not to cry, and promising that everything will be okay, and she'll get another proposal super fast. But then Alice drops the actual bombshell she's in love with Eddie. Khloe is just completely floored. He's totally shook trying to say he's not a good dude, but then her sis drops the bomb that she's preggo with his kid. She's bawling what am I even supposed to do? So Khloe's back in her room totally bugging out over what her sister just told her. She's thinking maybe this is on them for being too extra, and with her own whole situation she feels like it's kinda her fault. So yeah, she's gotta shut down this marriage proposal from the Duke ASAP. Next morning, she's already in her dad's office and he's like, "Why are you here so early?" And Khloe's like she needs to talk about Alice's whole marriage thing, says she was up all night stressing about it. Her dad totally cuts her off, saying that the idea of Alice marrying into the Tissy fam is like both sketchy and a relief. Khloe's like, "What's that even mean?" Apparently the Tissy family is all about their rep, so they won't just kick Alice to the curb if they find out she's not perfect. It's cause the Duke knows getting a divorce in this kingdom basically ruins your life. Khloe can see where this convo is going, so she decides it's time to just rip the band-aid off. She's about to spill the tea and tells her dad she has something major to tell him, but before she can say anything, Giles bursts in yelling for them like, "Miss Alice is..." The Viscount bolts, demanding to know what's up. Like, what's he even talking about? How could she just ghost? Then Giles hands over a letter he found in her room this morning. The second the Viscount starts reading it, it's like, "To my amazing dad and my bestie sis, I grew up watching the insane love Dad had for Mom. It taught me that real love can get through anything, even sickness and death for real. He's literally living proof of how powerful love is. So I can't ignore my heart anymore, and I want to be proud for the baby I'm carrying. I also gotta prove to myself that no love is off limits, but I don't want to mess up the Verrier family name. That's why I'm just gonna be Alice from now on. My bad. Please don't forgive me for being so selfish. And Khloe, I'm so sorry. I hope I can make it up to you someday." After he finishes the letter, the Duke just straight up passes out. And at the end, Alice still wrote that even though she was a terrible daughter, he should know she 100% means it when she says she loves him. With a totally broken heart and a million sorries, she signs off. At the bottom of the letter with just her name, no Verrier. A little while later, back in his room, the Viscount asks Khloe if she knew about all this, and she's like, yeah, she knew. That Alice was into some guy. Her dad totally gets that the only reason Khloe didn't bring him up was because she wasn't a fan of the relationship, and he was probably bad news for Alice. But Khloe claps back that if Alice dipped knowing everyone would hate it, then this guy must actually be a keeper. After all, she trusts her sister and it's all gonna be okay. So she tells her dad to just chill and focus on getting better, and that she'll deal with Duke Tissy herself. Out in the hall, our girl calls Giles out, asking if he just looked the other way while Alice bounced. I mean, Khloe knew the second he walked in with that letter that he'd never just go into Alice's room without a reason. The dude just spills, saying he can't hide anything from her. But plot twist, Khloe just thanks him for being there for Alice at that moment, since even she had no clue what the right move was. She's just glad he stuck by Alice when things got rough and helped her dip out. What's done is done, and now they just gotta focus on making the best of it. Hearing that, Giles wants to comfort her, but he knows his place and holds back. He just really hopes she doesn't blame herself and that she doesn't try to carry the weight of all this, because if she does, he doesn't know how he'll be able to live with himself. However, our girl replies that right now she's the only one who can hold down the House of Verrier. So she's gonna figure out a way for them to all make it, even if she has to make a super risky move. Meanwhile, the hot Duke is just chilling at his villa, vibing with the view. 3 days later, in the village where the Duke is staying, he says her visit is a surprise and asks if Khloe found his marriage proposal so interesting that she had to come talk about it face to face. Our girl explains that this is something you can't just text about and then switching it up. He asks if she's got some kind of contagious disease or something. She has no idea what he's on about and asks him, and he's like, well, if not, then she can totally come closer and sit next to him. Seeing Khloe hesitate, he's like, are you really gonna disobey me? And of course, she immediately sits down. The Duke then mentions that his injury hasn't gotten any better. Khloe asks if he's seen a doctor, and he's like, nah, pulling out this case with a bottle of stuff in it. Damon then asks if she can put this stuff on for him. Her face totally screams that she's not into this at all, and he calls it out, saying he can practically read her mind. Don't you have your own hands to do it? Obviously, Khloe denies it and grabs the little bottle. While she's putting it on, she makes small talk, saying it's been super hot, which is probably not helping his wound heal. So it'd be way better for him to... You should totally stay inside, cause being out here will just mess with your healing. Flexing like crazy. Damian's like, in his condition, he doesn't usually get such chill summers, and he's kinda digging the feeling of being roasted from head to toe. While Khloe is trying her best not to stare at his totally ripped body, she brings it back to the whole marriage thing, and the Duke asks why she shot down his proposal. She explains that getting married is physically impossible for her sister right now. Avi, he asks why. Our girl is kinda hesitant to spill the tea, and before she does, she asks if she can hit him with a question first. The second he says yes, Khloe asks if the real reason he wants to marry her sister is actually about her, and if his whole plan to join their family is just to totally and completely wreck her life, which makes the Duke just laugh. He's like, you remember what I said the other day, right? That thinking every girl in the kingdom is dying to marry him was a total ego trip. He says he thinks it's actually her, Lady Khloe, who's so full of herself that she's living in a fantasy world, which makes her feel super awkward for even asking that. Damon asks if she seriously thinks he'd marry some girl from a broke-as-heck family just to mess with her sister who can't walk. Khloe admits he's got a point, and that it's a total long shot. And he's like, you're low-key hilarious sometimes. Then he asks if it's cause he's in love with Alice. He's shocked she thinks he's some lovesick dude who'd marry for love. Khloe says if that's not it, then there's only one other reason he'd propose. He's probably got some super serious reason why he has to marry a Vertier girl. A reason he can't just tell everyone. She keeps going saying if he really has a reason to ghost all the hottest girls in the kingdom to propose to a family with no clout. It's probably because it doesn't even matter who he marries, which means he might even want to marry a girl with a super obvious flaw that nobody would even look at twice. He leans in real close and asks if she means a girl who can't use one of her legs. Our girl, not even flinching, says that kind of girl would probably be the perfect wifey for him. Then bam, he just kisses her, which totally catches everyone off guard, because things went from 0 to 100 real quick. Khloe kisses him back. But when he pulls back for a second, she yanks her hand off his face, asking what the heck he thinks he's doing. He just says she's always got some sassy comeback, and he was curious to see how much bite she really had. He pulls her in and gives her a kiss on her neck, and Damon says this is the perfect time to ask if she can, give him a kid. Feeling totally disrespected, Khloe slaps the Duke right across the face, saying him acting like this. Before she even answers, the proposal is completely out of line. The Duke's like, yeah, okay, fair response. But then he tells her she should probably brush up on the basics of making a deal and tells her to get out. A few days go by and Khloe's in the office talking to someone, but honestly, she's totally spaced out replaying that kiss and hearing that guy's voice saying her name until she finally snaps out of it. She hears Jill calling her name again, all worried because she looks super pale. She's like, I'm fine, and tells him to keep going with what he was saying. Jill explains that ever since the marriage news dropped, the royals just keep sending gifts for Alice. The garden is literally overflowing with boxes of presents stacked to the sky. This makes him wonder if her talk with the Duke went south. Hearing this, Khloe starts thinking her gut feeling was right all along. Prince Johannes is the official next in line for the throne. But there's this other dude whose power level is basically the same as the royals. That'd be Duke Damian, which is why the royal family is probably so hyped about this engagement since he's marrying a girl from a no-name family like a Viscount's instead of some super important one. They get cut off when a butler walks in. He says a guest just showed up and tells them it's Duke Damian and asks if he should go get the Viscount. Khloe jumps up and says her dad is sick so he shouldn't be bothered and tells him to take the Duke to the living room and that she'll change and then meet him. But the second they get to her room, they're shocked to see the Duke just there. He's like, you look surprised to see me. Our girl fires back that it's super messed up to just walk into a lady's room uninvited. He jokes that he just couldn't help it. He missed her that much. Khloe tries to tell him he should have waited in the living room, but he gets closer and asks if that's really necessary, since they're about to be the kind of couple that doesn't need to keep secrets from each other. Gilles is just shook watching this whole thing go down and how he's talking to her. The Duke, annoyed that the servant is still there, tells him to shut the door on his way out. He does what he's told, but he feels so useless, like he can't say a thing. So lame. He's like a lost puppy. A box with the necklace and earrings gets put on the table, and Damon explains that this jewelry has been in the Damian family for like forever. Technically, his mom is supposed to give them to his new wife as a tradition, but she's not exactly a fan of this whole marriage. Khloe, knowing this is so not ideal, just says she kind of figured. The Duke watches her look down and asks if she's just faking being chill, or if she actually doesn't give a crap. She's like, my bad for acting so weird, but you can tell she's bugging, waiting to see what he says next. Finally, she's just like, hold up, are you seriously telling me you said yes to the proposal? Damon, holding the necklace, is just like, yup. He steps closer and hits her with the big question. Khloe Virger, will you marry me? And our girl just bows all like, I'm so grateful you're actually going through with this. But he's not vibing with her reaction, He's like, are you actually grateful? And when she says yeah, Damon comes back with, all right, so how are you gonna prove it? She's like, I'll do everything I can to help with your whole plan. But he's just messing with her head like always, and asks what she thinks he really wants. And when she just freezes up, the Duke's like, guess I'm gonna have to, persuade those quiet lips to start talking again. Khloe snaps out of it fast and is like, I think you want power. But then she throws in that she's too clueless to really know his game plan. Damon gets super pissed and is like, from now on, you're never allowed to say that again. We both know you're not clueless. Our girl, kind of moved by his whole vibe, says she'll do whatever it takes to help him. And if he ever wants to call it quits later on, she'll just sign the papers, no drama. Hearing her already talking about divorce, Damon's like, wow, the audacity, and says her nerve is seriously getting on his. She's quick to backpedal like, whoa, that's not what I meant. Damon's curious and asks what Khloe's ultimate goal is. Our girl just says she wants to be a duchess. He doesn't say a word, just gets up and puts the necklace on her. Then he's like, so how does it feel wearing the Tissy family jewels? She gets all bashful and says it's heavy. Damon's like, that weight is nothing compared to the weight of being a duke's wife. He asks if she's serious about all this. Khloe looks him straight in the eye and says it's what she wants more than anything. Then he pulls her face in close and asks if she's reconsidered her negotiating tactics. Like, what does she think he's after right now? Out of the blue, Khloe rips the handkerchief from his neck and gives him a shy little kiss. And my guy just goes for it, like full-on passion. But the second he tries to get more intense, she drops the handkerchief and pulls away completely flustered. The Duke's like, was that a little too much for you? He's like, for real, it's only gonna get crazier from here. Oh, you guys, if this dude wasn't such a giant red flag, he'd be perfect. Anyway, later he's kicking back in the living room with the Viscount, and the Duke says Khloe is going to be an amazing Duchess. Obviously, her dad is glowing like, you bet she is, my daughter's a genius and everyone will respect her. And he adds that if the Duke can just make her happy, the Viscount is willing to give up absolutely everything, even his own life. Khloe finally looks over at Damon's hand and sees he's wearing the glove she was planning to give him. She's thinking, when did he even snag that from her room? Meanwhile, Damon's like, well, if the Viscount is so insistent, I'll take the forest and the mountain that goes all the way to the Verrier estate. The Viscount is completely confused. I mean, that land is worthless, and the trees are pretty much just fancy weeds. But Damon, laying on the charm, says it has the lake that Lady Khloe loves. Plus, he says that's where their whole story began. Yep, just playing her like a pawn in his big brain scheme again. A few days later, the wedding is for real happening, and the bishop asks if he'll fulfill his duties as a husband and stand by his wife, through thick and thin. Khloe, looking like a total smoke show in the family necklace, waits for his answer. And Damon says, I do. Then the bishop tells them to make it official with a kiss. So Khloe closes her eyes, bracing herself for it. But Psych Damon just kisses her on the cheek and asks, were you hoping for something more? The poor girl is shook. But her blushing cheeks totally give her away. He totally read her mind. Like two guests clap for them while the Viscount is gushing about how gorgeous his daughter looks. Gillis is just standing there stunned, like how did this even happen? So, the Duke's wedding is officially a wrap. As they're walking down the aisle, Damon calls Khloe's name, and she just looks at him without saying anything. She's completely caught by surprise when he just sweeps her up into his arms, even though she's obviously not feeling it. She's literally speechless when he's like, are you gonna make this weird? Taking the hint, she wraps her arms around his neck and he just goes, good job, Khloe Vantissi. OMG, y'all, what a beautiful wedding in chapter 15. I am shipping them so hard right now. Anyway, a few days later in the village, the hot gossip is that the Duke dipped out of the Verrier estate like the second the wedding ended. Apparently, he took off in a massive rush and didn't even spend the wedding night with his new wife. Giles overhears all this chatter, with people wondering if the Duchess is going to be abandoned for like 3 months. Inside a tailor shop, some girl is dishing all the dirt about the Duke. Apparently, the paper said that even after tying the knot, the Duke couldn't get over his huge thing for the Martian Isabella and was seen taking a walk with her. And get this, the one reading this trashy tabloid is our girl Khloe. The maid asks if she should just set the paper on fire. But Khloe's like, nah, leave it. I mean, burning the paper isn't going to make the rumors go away, right? Khloe just says if they're done with the measurements, she's about to dip. But then, the girl's like, wait, we still need to go over the design and the fabric. But Khloe is so done with this and just wants to bounce, so she tells the girl to just pick whatever she thinks is best, since she's the pro anyway. So she bounces from the tailor's shop. While she's getting in her ride outside, people are still spilling the tea saying guys have zero self-control and are gonna totally wreck the country. Once they're in the carriage, Gil's like, Khloe, for real, why don't you just let other people handle the government stuff at least for now? He says he could even take care of some stuff for her, but she shuts it down and says everything's fine. Giles is stressing, saying he doesn't want her getting any extra heat, especially after all that drama in the news. But Khloe's on a whole other wavelength. She thinks if she wants people to see her as the Duchess, letting some fake rumors shake her will just make everyone else freak out. On the way home, Khloe has a total flashback to the wedding day. The Duke, already on his horse, was like, all right, ceremony's over, I'm heading back to the capital, saying she should just do her Duchess thing at her own place. But get this, in 3 whole months, he never answered a single one of Khloe's letters. And she's wondering if that other woman is the reason, even though she had like zero expectations for that marriage. Our girl is trying her best to act like it doesn't faze her, but Geese can totally see she's not doing so hot. So he calls out to her and says he's got good news waiting at home, telling her a letter came from Miss Alice. It was short, but it said she was doing good. Totally hyped by the news. Khloe asks why he didn't tell her sooner, and says she's so happy to finally get an update from Alice. I mean, that was always her main goal, just to know her sister is safe and happy, and that her dad is feeling way better. On top of that, her marriage has everyone in the state in a super good mood. And thinking about it, maybe she actually prefers living away from him. All she wants is for this chill vibe to last forever. Later that night, the Duke is reading Khloe's letter, where she says that just like in her last letters, everything is cool, in the state of Verrier, giving him props for it, and that she hopes the work he had to deal with wraps up soon, and as soon as she knows more, she'll write again. Signing it sincerely, Khloe Virger. The Duke reads it and just laughs when he sees she signed with her family name, like is she not even planning to take his last name at his desk? He glances at the news story about him and the Marchioness, and is 100% sure Khloe heard the rumors, but she still didn't write a single thing about it, wondering how it made her feel. Did she cry? But knowing her, she probably just bottled it all up as usual, not knowing that's exactly what ticks him off the most. He smirks, just imagining her getting jealous over him. In another news clip, he sees it written that Duke Thea's secret fling during his so-called honeymoon secured Johannes' spot as the heir, and the tea about the king's failing health is still making the rounds. Damian is stoked to see they printed exactly what he wanted. Looking at it reminded him of Khloe saying that power was his endgame and that she would do anything to help him. He says out loud like he's replying to the memory that she was being kinda bold, since there was literally nothing she could do to help him. He knows whenever he thinks of her, he gets this super possessive vibe, which just shows how obsessed he is. Good thing he's hot, right? Since the very first time he saw her, she bugged him helping the wounded when she could have easily been mistaken for one of them. The weird feeling he got every time he saw her like that left a seriously bad taste in his mouth as he looks at the glove he swiped, which was a gift, by the way. He thinks maybe next time he should just lock her in a room and make her sew all day. And as soon as she runs out of fabric, he'd make her embroider his actual skin. Ugh, I'm trying to ignore how toxic this is, but it's tough. Help me, Damian. So another day at the royal palace, the king tells Damian that it's probably almost time for him to kick the bucket. With that, he hopes the Duke will serve Johannes even after he's gone, saying he's sure Damian knows the prince isn't exactly playing with a full deck. Then he asks the Duke to swear to God that he'll be loyal to Johannes. Obviously, Damian's no one's puppet and says he'll be loyal if he's a king who's actually worth it. This makes the king mega furious, saying it's the duty of the kingdom's servants to serve the king. Damian claps back that it's pretty clear what the future of this kingdom will be then, if it's run by someone who's completely lost it without anyone noticing. He then says, actually, I take that back. After all, he and the king both know that Johannes is unhinged, and about all the people he's taken out. There are endless rumors about body bags being hauled out of the prince's room one by one, and it won't be long before people figure out that this was never just a rumor. Grabbing the king's hand, Damian says he put his life on the line on the battlefield for this kingdom. That's why he'll always be down to fight for his country. And the only fair thing is for the throne to go to a guy who's actually fit to rule this country. The king is still ticked off, coughing his lungs out because of how bad his health is, asking what Damian's endgame is. Damian just says the prince being off his rocker might be a secret for now, but for real, the king can't just hide the sun with the palm of his hand. Barely hanging on, the king's like, so when did you start having this whole main character complex, Duke? And before bouncing, Damon just drops that this whole vibe has been with him since day one. Meanwhile, back at the Verrier crib, Chloe's trying to read in her office, but she's totally spacing out, and the only thing taking up her brain space is the Duke and that Martian Isabella chick, wondering if she should have actually paid attention to that article. Trying to ghost those thoughts, she decides to just ditch the book and do something else. But before she can even move, her dad busts in saying she got a letter from the Duke and mentions that the Duke was probably also stressing about the tea that got spilled in the newspaper. Chloe is totally shook. I mean, he's ghosted her for over 3 months since he dipped from the capital. When she opens the letter, it starts with, to my dear wife, Khloe Virger. Kinda clowning her cause she signs with her family name. He asks her to just hang tight in Tissy while he's off doing his Duke duties. At the end of the letter, he says he hopes she's hyped to see him again and signs off as, your hubby Damian Vons. Later at the mansion door, the Viscount says his goodbyes to them, telling Jill to look out for Chloe, and the dude is like, don't even trip, and our girl reassures him she's not a kid anymore, holding her big sister's hand. The Viscount says that she and Alice will always be his little girls. They have a big goodbye hug, and Chloe's low-key wishing she could just say that if she could, she'd live there with him forever. But she just says she'll be fine, making him feel better by saying he saw for himself how the Duke totally takes care of her. Yeah, right, only when people are watching. Cause on the DL, while Chloe's smiling at her dad, her brain is screaming about how much she does asterisk not asterisk want to go to Tissy. But there's no way out, so our girl gets on the train heading to her new home. Inside the carriage, Gil tells Lady Khloe he totally could have just ridden in the cargo car with the other servants cause he feels like this whole setup is way too bougie for him. But Chloe's like it's gonna be a long 2-day trip, and plus she's about to be on her own most of the time. So, they start the journey totally noticing the season change with the snow melting. Rolling up to the gate of the Tissy Duchy Castle, they're met by a woman who introduces herself as Elisa, the head maid. Chloe thinks it's kinda sus. I mean, the castle is massive and only one person came to welcome her, the literal Duchess of the place. Yeah, she's probably not getting a warm welcome. Even so, she thanks the lady and asks her to hook her servant up with some food since he's had a super long trip. Alyssa says she'll get a maid to whip something up for her guy. In the meantime, Chloe's gotta follow her. Turning to Jill, Chloe thanks him for rolling with her to the Duke's house and says she's super bummed she can't see him off but wishes him a safe trip back. And then she follows the head maid until they get to Damian's mom's quarters. Chloe introduces herself, saying it's like a total honor to meet her and thanking her for sending a ride to pick them up from the station. And while she's saying all this, she realizes the Duke is a total clone of his mom. He for sure got his good looks from her. And the Duchess herself says that Chloe is a total smoke show, saying she looks just like the first deer Damian caught when he was just a little kid. The woman then asks if Chloe has some secret cash stashed away, or if she knows all the royal family's dirty laundry. Chloe is obviously like, no. Putting her hand on Chloe's face, the woman says that in that case, Damon probably picked her to be his wife for reasons that weren't just practical. She keeps going, saying it's true, Chloe is gorgeous, but hunting a deer with a busted leg is kinda off-brand for her son. She just couldn't believe what she was hearing when he asked for the family bling, because he was gonna propose, wondering if it was maybe just for the LOLs. After all, her son does love a little drama now and then. The poor girl can't even say what she's really thinking, and just replies that the Duke wouldn't make a move on something as major as marriage just out of curiosity, and that she still doesn't know all the deets on why he picked her, but she's planning to be the best and help the family level up in any way she can. Seeing Chloe's whole attitude, The woman says that at least the girls got more going on upstairs than she thought, commenting that with a face like hers, the family jewels are gonna look sick on her. Plus, she says Khloe can help take care of the castle and that she trusts her son. After all, nothing is more important to him than family. Getting all mom-like, the woman asks if Khloe wants to hear some stories about little Damian. Totally drained, she flops onto the bed in her new room, so overhearing all this nonsense about the Duke's childhood. She always pictured him having a super strict upbringing, but apparently he was a total spoiled brat as a kid. Rolling over to get comfier in bed, she spots a portrait of the Duke that was definitely left by her bedside on purpose. Putting the picture frame face down, she just can't figure out what his game was by putting it there. A few hours later, Khloe is totally passed out with the picture frame staring right back at her. She probably flipped it back up in case someone noticed. A little while later, the Duke's mom comments that she was surprised the girl locked herself in the office for 3 days straight after she arrived, saying that, so yeah, she and her son are basically twins, 'cause he gets in the zone hard when he's focused. Anyway, the old lady just gets straight to it, asking Khloe what tea she's got to spill. Our girl asks Eliza if they can, talk alone for a sec. But plot twist, Madame's like, Eliza's been here since Damian was a baby, so she's basically fam. Meaning there's no convo she's not clued in on. Khloe's brain just glitches back to that letter from a few days ago where the Duke was all what's up and how he's trusting her to be a good Duchess. And not to mess up signing off with miss you, and just his name Damian. But low-key, the vibe our girl got from that letter was more like a threat. And that's legit why she's here now, ready to go at it with his mom. 'Cause after grinding on the account books for 3 whole days, she found some super shady stuff going on with the castle's cash. Pretty much money is just vanishing. But Madame acting all chill is like, whatever, running a massive castle is complicated. But one look at Eliza's freaked out face and you know the whole story. Khloe doesn't back down, saying she's not 100% sure where the money's being funneled, but the taxes they're collecting from everyone are not adding up. Plus, there's a huge difference with the number of wine bottles in the basement compared to what the books say. This has happened more than once, probably a ton of times based on what she found. And all this sketchy business kicked off right when Eliza got her promotion to steward. The vibe in the room gets super tense, and Eliza just starts ugly crying. Finally, the old lady tells Eliza to dip. Then she flips on Khloe, asking why she didn't just come to her on the DL. Khloe says sorry, but holds her ground, saying they really need to axe both Eliza and the stable master Robinson. Her reasoning is that Eliza would have needed a massive cart to sneak all that stolen junk out. And since it was a ton of stuff, there's zero chance she did it solo. But even after hearing all that, Damian's mom is like, they're both OGs who helped the family out when things were rough. To which Khloe claps back that makes it even more messed up, because if Eliza actually cared about her job, she never would have pulled this stunt. And she warns Madame that if she lets this slide, it's just gonna get worse. She cuts Khloe off mid-sentence and asks why the young woman has to make her life so hard and why she's still calling her Madame when they're supposed to be family now. This completely messes with our girl's head, and she asks if she should call her mother. But Damian's mom says that's wrong too. Getting up to leave, the woman says this convo is done, and she'll deal with Damian when he's back. Khloe can just eat alone since she totally ruined her appetite. Khloe asks if she should have dinner sent to Madame's room, which just pisses the woman off more, telling her to shut up and stop arguing with everything she says. Before she storms off, she adds that Khloe is actually super annoying. Our poor girl is just left there feeling completely wrecked. Like dealing with the psycho Duke wasn't bad enough. Now she has to deal with his mom too. A little later in the dining room, a maid brings her some water. On her way out, she's like, just holler if you need anything. Khloe looks down at her plate, which is basically empty, and what's on it looks nasty, not gonna lie. Still, she figures she should eat. It's better than nothing, right? But then it sinks in that she's pretty much made everyone here hate her guts. Earlier, she caught some maids talking trash in the hallway, saying the new Duchess was trying to get Eliza canned and shading the Duke for not choosing a better wife. After all that, she completely lost her appetite and starts stressing about if her dad's okay. And if Gellis made it home safe, and if Alice sent another letter hoping that maybe when the Duke gets back things will cool down. But she knows that's just wishful thinking. I mean, making people squirm seems to be this family's specialty. While she's just jabbing her sad-looking steak, our girl mumbles out loud that she can't decide who's worse, the mom or the son. She jumps when a voice says she must be having a fun little talk with herself. As he walks up, Damian says talking to herself isn't really her style. He jokes that maybe it's 'cause he left her all by herself. Khloe shoots up to greet him, right? But before she can even get a word out, the door bursts open. His mom runs in to greet her baby boy, saying it feels like a dream, and he should have given her a heads up he was coming. And her perfect little son says he rushed back 'cause he missed her. Yeah, we're all making the same face as Khloe watching this majorly cringe moment. The woman cups his face, saying the trip must have been rough 'cause he looks skinny, which he's like, nah. Saying he was chilling in first class on the train the whole way. Glancing at the table, he says rushing back made him starving, and his mom is all excited, saying she'll get the chef to whip something up. But he shuts that down, saying what's on the table is plenty. Looking at that sad excuse for a meal, even Khloe is getting secondhand embarrassment. He asks them to set another spot at the table. They set it up, and it turns out there was way more food than she thought. Damian asks if everything was cool while he was away and she totally lies, saying everyone was awesome and made her feel right at home. But the second he takes a bite of that steak that's as dry as sandpaper, he drops his fork and the wine glass goes flying. So after he hawks up the steak, he's like, get a doctor in here like right now. His mom is totally freaking out, asking what's going on and why they need a doc. The Duke gets all extra and says that as the family's one and only doctor, he totally dropped the ball on keeping everyone healthy, and for that he needs to pay for it. The madam's like, bro, I'm literally fine. But Damon's not having it, saying the fact they're eating this gross food without even complaining means her taste buds are totally fried. His mom gets super red and is like, there's nothing wrong with me. You don't need to punish the doctor. He's all worried like, are you sure, Mom? Cause for real, this steak is tough as leather. The veggies are all shriveled and sad and this soup is basically ancient. Even this wine is trash for a meal at the Tissy house. He asks if she even clocked any of this and then yells, get the chef in here like yesterday. So with the whole kitchen squad standing there, the chef is like, I honestly have no idea how the scraps that we usually give to the shelters ended up being served to you guys. She's basically saying whoever set the table majorly screwed up. And right on cue, the maids own up to it, apologizing for the massive screw up. Damon is so pissed, he's like, you think sorry fixes you dissing my fam? Then orders them all to be tossed in the dungeons to get seriously messed up. Khloe jumps in like, whoa, take a chill pill, it was just one dinner, let it go, it's not that deep. He claps back that the food was literally for charity. Our girl argues back, so what, it wasn't poison. But Damon's like, I told you to have some class and you sitting there eating that trash is a total insult to my name. He even throws in that even if Khloe's a commoner, she should at least have some basic sense. So trying to stop a total meltdown, our girl apologizes and says she totally failed at this whole Duchess thing. But she pulls the as your wife and the lady of this house card, begging him to chill out and show some mercy, asking for a chance to serve up something that's actually good. Later, Khloe's in her room totally drained but also like super stoked, thinking about how she just saved all those people's lives. After their big fight, Damian actually caved, saying if that's what she really wanted, he'd drop it and that she was a super generous person. She just face plants on her bed, thinking what a crazy long day it's been. But at least she didn't have to watch anyone get unalived. But of course, the day was so not over yet. A maid knocks, saying the Duke wants to see her in his room. She tells the maid she'll be right there, but inside she's wondering what the heck he wants with her this late. Before the maid can even dip, Damon just waltzes in, asking what she needs to get ready for, since it's not like they gotta be all formal and fancy at this hour. Khloe is dying of embarrassment and tries to cover up, but he's already chilling on her bed, asking if she gets it. Khloe just brushes that off and tells him to wait outside, saying she'll just throw something on real quick. But he just plops down on the bed, making it obvious he's not going anywhere, and says again she doesn't need to do all that, she just needs to come to his room. Super annoyed, Khloe grabs her cane to get up, and Damon's like, you seriously can't even get out of bed without that thing? While she's grabbing a shawl to wrap around herself, Khloe claps back that it's not easy, and she could totally eat it, even hinting that he'd probably get a kick out of that. To which Damon's like, oh yeah, I'd love that. Then he gets up, holds out his hand, and calls her wife, asking if they can bounce to his room. So now she's sitting in the Duke's room, asking what was so important that he had to drag her over so late, which totally threw her. She's worried he means like asterisk that asterisk kind of stuff, since he didn't even try anything on their wedding night. Totally panicking, she grips her shawl even tighter and just looks away, saying nothing. And Damon thinks it's hilarious, because he can totally read her mind. He finally stops messing with her and says he wants to give her a reward for acing the whole Duchess thing, which just leaves Khloe confused because she feels like she hasn't done squat. Then he explains it's because she managed to boot Alyssa and Robinson. Our girl is like, hold up, you knew those two were snakes this whole time. And he's like, look, I love my mom a lot and I knew they were her squad, so I just kind of looked the other way. And right when he was having his major mama's boy moment, Khloe made a grossed out face. He even asks, is it that wild that I love my mom? But she plays it off like that's not what she was thinking at all. Damon explains that even though his mom acts like a kid and has a short fuse, she's still his mom. Anyway, she's gonna go chill at their village down south for a bit. He says she was devastated that poor Alyssa and Robson got canned, and the Duke thinks a change of scenery will be good for his mom to like get some space. Plus, it'll help Khloe get used to the castle easier, which makes her wonder if this whole shipping his mom off thing is actually his weird way of being nice. He drops a box on the table and tells her to open it. When Khloe opens it, she's literally shook by what's inside. Damon explains that he was going to give her something else. Something way more practical than a cane, especially since she's always losing that thing. So that's why he went with the brace. Once she gets used to it, she'll be able to walk around all chill without needing any help. And he tells Khloe to go ahead and try it on. But our girl just shuts the box, says thanks for the gift, and tells him that it's up to the person who gets the present whether they use it or not. And that's why she's like, I'll try it later. But for real, homegirl was just super embarrassed, because she has zero clue how to use it and didn't want to look like a total klutz stumbling around. And maybe he's even trying to clown her a little, questioning what he's really up to with this gift. Damian was so not feeling that answer, saying that if the choice is really up to her, then he guesses she thinks it was her choice to have her servant ride in the same train car. Khloe is shook and asks if he's been having someone spy on her, but the Duke explains that when you're part of the Dissafam, you end up hearing all the tea whether you want to or not. And he'd also love to know why she was being so extra nice to some random servant, especially bringing him all the way to the duchy. Our girl says that she is a super loyal servant who's worked for her family since he was just a kid. Of course, the Duke claps back that Alyssa took care of him too when he was a baby, and she still double-crossed her family. The tension was insane, they were both so jelly. Realizing this argument was going nowhere fast, our girl tells him she wishes he'd stop dissing her. The Duke explains that he's not trying to insult her, he's just giving her a heads up since her so-called loyal servant hasn't even left the Test Duchy. And it's gonna look real bad if people find out he's still around cause they'll probably say he's got a thing for his boss. And then even more rumors are gonna start flying around behind the Duchess's back. Khloe is shocked to hear Gil didn't go back to Verdier. Like, why would he do that? While she was totally spacing out, Damian gets all up in her space saying he can't believe she just ditched her Duchess duties and made him look bad, and then he gets to his real point, which was to make her wear the gift. With basically no choice, Khloe decides to just risk it and do what he says. But plot twist, it's way harder than it looked. She totally eats it the second she tries to walk with the thing, so Damian kneels down next to her and asks, what part of it feels weird? When he's about to touch her leg, she's like, don't. But the Duke keeps pushing, telling her to speak up so he can fix it. Super embarrassed, Khloe says the whole thing is uncomfortable, that it doesn't help at all, and it just hurts. But the Duke isn't backing down, and says it'll probably be the total opposite once she gets used to it. He puts his hand on her face and is like, are you crying? Okay, not gonna lie, he scored some points there. He's actually trying to help, but our girl isn't falling for it and just turns her face away, saying she's got nothing to cry about. While he's lifting her dress, he says that crying like a baby isn't very Duchess-like. He pulls her up, helping Khloe get to her feet while she mutters that he's seriously a devil. He grabs her chin, and the Duke says he still has to show her what a real monster he can be. Our girl holds her ground, though, and isn't falling for the Duke's whole vibe, telling Chloe's like, my heart is totally racing. And while he takes this thing off her, he's all like, is your body getting hot like there's a fire inside? Is your blood pumping so fast you can't even breathe, right? And does it feel like your heart's about to piece out of your chest? Bro, she's completely under his spell, totally speechless. Closing her eyes, Chloe's like, yeah, and that's exactly why I'm so pissed about this. And then he just kisses her. Our girl gets totally swept up in the feels. She kisses him back, and then Damian pulls away for a sec. He gently touches her face and asks her, how it felt to lock lips with the guy she literally called the devil. Totally shook, Khloe just begs him to let her go back to her room. Seeing her all flustered and embarrassed, the Duke is like, you can bounce. A bit later at the castle of Tis, the guys are all talking about these new train tracks that are going to run all the way to the state of Verrier. And because of this, the whole territory is about to get a major glow-up. Some dude asks if this is the wedding gift he's giving his wifey, and Damian just claps back with, is that a problem? Obviously, the guy immediately backpedals, saying, of course not, bro. He's just so surprised the Duke is such a devoted husband, total sarcasm. Meanwhile, poor Khloe is literally dying of cringe listening to this, and another guy switches gears saying some sus movements are being spotted in the Duchy of Carter. They supposedly called a truce on the war, but you never know when they're gonna pop off again since they can ambush at any time with their home turf advantage, and that's exactly why the Duke should totally strike first. He keeps saying the whole thing is super urgent, which gets the Duke thinking. Then he clocks Khloe completely zoning out. So Damian puts her on blast like he'd love to hear his wife's hot take on the matter. And of course, everyone shoots her some major side-eye. But before they can just dismiss her, Khloe says that even though she doesn't get all the deets, she's pretty sure the people of Swanton are just so over all the fighting. The Duke, who's low-key digging her input, is like, you might be right. But then he's all, still wouldn't taking over their duchy be a huge W for our kingdom's people? Our girl claps back that no one can guarantee a W in a war and using their spot on the map to their advantage. The guy's like, okay, I'm impressed. For real, the Duchess knows her stuff. But Damian keeps pushing, saying they should just chill and wait for the Carters to get even more OP, especially since they're already hiking up prices on stuff from the Empire. He's like, so what's your take on that? Everyone's just staring at Khloe. But she's just thinking the Duke is totally trying to clown on her in front of all these guys, and she is so not having it. They start bickering, and the Duke is basically like, you're being a little naive. Like, hello, people break promises all the time. But Khloe claps back, saying there are def ways to make sure both sides keep their word without messing up the treaty. And for her big finish, Khloe says the Empire is all about family connections. So there are a ton of ways to get in good, but the most solid move is to lock in an alliance with a marriage. Damian's like, yeah, a marriage would be a sick power move. But the duchy only has one son, and our royal family has literally 0 princesses. So Khloe hits him with, excuse me, the Empire has Prince Johannes and the Carter Duchy has 3 older daughters who are still single. All the nobles in the room start trying to hold in their laughter, which totally messes with Khloe's head, while Damian just says the prince's name over and over like it's the funniest thing he's ever heard. Khloe is totally clueless, but it's dead obvious they're clowning on her idea. Then some noble dude chimes in saying that being hitched to the prince would be like a total nightmare. And he's all like, the Duchess probably hasn't been keeping up with the Red Veil, which is basically the TMZ that spilled all the tea on the Duke and that Marchioness chick. He keeps yapping, saying if she'd just read the articles about the prince, but the other noble cuts him off like, bro, that paper is straight up garbage and has 0 chill. 'Cause of all the fake news at Prince. The Duke just plays it cool and says he has no clue if his wife reads that stuff or not. But based on her face, it's pretty clear she totally has. Our girl claps back that she's only glanced at a few things but didn't really get into it. I mean, it's just a trashy tabloid. Getting mega pissed, she gets up and is like, I'm gonna go grab dessert, you guys can keep up your little gossip sesh. The two nobles start whispering that she's actually low-key fascinating, and they totally get why the Duke fast-tracked the wedding. The other guy is like, bro, you can't say stuff like that. But the first dude is all, nah, I didn't mean it like that. It was just that she was interesting, he actually vibes with her takes for real. But it was way too late, cause Khloe was already so done with the whole vibe and just thought they were a bunch of losers. Later that night, Khloe starts hearing these sus noises. Someone is banging on her door like a maniac screaming her name. The second Khloe cracks it open, she sees this person in a cloak totally freaking out and calling for her. It's Eliza, before they can even get a word out. Another maid sprints over yelling for Alyssa, telling her she can't just be roaming around cause if the Duke caught her, but Alyssa just shuts her down, telling the girl to back off, asking if she even has a clue how long she's worked there. She says she's dedicated her whole life to serving the Duke's fam. Khloe tells her to just chill for a sec and spill what's happening. The woman explains that her grandson is super sick. It started with a fever, then he just conked out and now he's just talking crazy in his sleep. That's why she came begging for the family doctor to come check on him. Our girl instantly remembers having something just like that when she was little. She had a crazy fever and cried a whole bunch calling for her mom. So because of her own backstory, she decides to send the doc. But the other maid is like, you can't do that without the Duke's okay. Annoyed, Chloe's like, are you for real planning to wake the Duke up over this? Did you forget who the Duchess of this place is? The girl gets all shook and says she'll go get the doctor right now. Khloe, grabbing a coat, tells Alyssa to get ready to bounce. The woman is mega confused by this. But our girl explains that with a fever this gnarly, they can't waste a single second telling her they gotta hustle. Once they're in the room with the grandson, someone's like, what is the Duchess even doing? She's stripping the boy's clothes off while he's shaking from the fever. Alyssa, totally bugging out, asks if this is gonna make things worse since he's shaking so hard he could literally freeze to death. But Khloe just tells her to hurry up and grab some snow from outside, cause they have to bring his fever down right now. Alyssa is obviously sketching out, but she does it anyway, warning her that if anything happens to him, she'll never forgive her. Chloe's just like, go ahead and hate me, but if you don't want your grandson to be stuck with a limp for the rest of his life like me, then your best bet is to help me out. A little later, the doctor explains that the Duchess's quick thinking was totally clutch for treating the kid, saying he was probably a goner if she hadn't stepped in. He tells Alyssa she owes the Duchess big time. Bawling her eyes out, Alyssa asks what she could possibly do to repay her. But Khloe just says she didn't save the kid to get something out of it, telling her she's just happy he's okay. It was that little window of time she never got, which is why her leg is messed up. And boom! The whole scene gets wrecked when the Duke just strolls in calling for Khloe. Everyone's shook. Alyssa is freaking out, but he's just like, yo, Khloe, we gotta talk. Outside. So they're outside, and Chloe's trying to explain everything like, look, Alyssa was supposed to be out of here 2 days ago. But her grandkid got sick, so she couldn't leave. And all that cash she supposedly stole. Yeah, her son jacked it and blew it all gambling. It's a total L. The kid's innocent for real, it was the adults who screwed up. Plus, Chloe's making the point that Alyssa basically gave her entire life to the Tissy fam. So she's pretty much family at this point. But even after Khloe spills everything, the Duke is just radio silent. And our girl Khloe is starting to low-key panic. On top of that, it's legit freezing, and homegirl is out here in just her pajamas and a cape. You have zero clue what's going on in this dude's head, cause his face is a total blank. So Khloe tries to explain a little more. She's like, I called the doctor without asking you cause I didn't want to wake you, my bad. And finally, Mr. Tall, Dark, and Brooding actually opens his mouth. He says her name and is all, I never asked you to explain and you don't need to justify yourself or say sorry. The only thing he wants to know is why she even bothered to help Alyssa. And get this, he found out she even wrote a whole letter of recommendation for Alyssa to land a new job. Chloe's just like, dude, she looked like she needed a hand. And since she'd worked at the castle for ever, she had no other choice if she wanted a good ref. And the whole doctor thing, total emergency, okay. We had zero time to waste. The Duke hits her with, so you were just trying to feel less guilty for getting Alyssa booted. And Chloe's just like, nah. So then he goes, oh, so you just felt bad for her. Cause her son gambled away all their money? Or is it just cause you're always super nice to the help? She denies it again, then flips it on him, asking if he has a motive for literally everything he does. And he's all cocky yeah, obviously. Chloe's just confused why he's gotta grill her with 20 questions. The Duke then asks what she'd do differently, instead of asking a bajillion questions when you're trying to get close to somebody. She gets all red because she had no clue that was his angle, and she's like, I just get to know people organically, especially when you can just kind of vibe check them from afar. You learn way more about a person like that than by interrogating them. Noticing Chloe's bright red hands, Damon's like, you look cold. Then he throws his own cloak over her shoulders, saying he wants to give her another gift. The Duke's thinking about hooking Gillis up with the open stablemaster job since Gillis is out here on his hustle running deliveries at the train station instead of bouncing back to Virger. So it's pretty much a welcome to the crew offer. Obviously, she's totally stoked about this. She's gassing Gillis up, saying he's a real one, and that she'd bet anything he'd kill it and get his life on track. After she swears nothing sus ever went down between them, the Duke leans in real close and is like, if that's for real, you should kiss me. He's telling her to prove her whole deal with that servant is platonic, and if she does, the Duke will keep his word. Khloe's like, I have literally zero desire to kiss you. And he's all, what a bummer. Looks like that poor guy's about to get put on a train right out of the duchy. Our girl tries to clap back, saying Gil can stay wherever he wants. But Damon's like, I'm a super loyal husband, and the less my wife trusts me, the fewer places we'll take Gil in. The nerve Khloe is so ticked because he's about to wreck this dude's life over some petty jealousy. Seeing she's totally trapped, she tells him to lean down, and of course he does. Then bam, she grabs his collar and just lays one on him. Come on, we all know she was low-key waiting for this, right? Always playing hard to get, but I mean, look at him. The dude is a whole snack. Facts. Just kiss the man already, and big surprise, he's totally feeling it. He pulls her into a hug, telling her not to even try to dip, and then kisses her again while she's struggling on her tiptoes because of her leg. She finally breaks away from the kiss, and Damon's all, not bad, a solid effort. It was the most fire kiss she's ever given him, and the whole thing was for another guy. Which LOL leaves him feeling super good, but also big mad at the same time. A while later, Khloe's in her office writing a letter to her dad, starting with an apology for not writing sooner. She's been swamped and mentions it's so cold there the river is literally a block of ice. Even so, she hasn't had a single second to notice the weather changing in the castle. Staff has been like crazy nice to her. Oh, and the Duke is really trying his best to help her get used to her new life there. Reading it back, she realizes that capping to her dad like this is not it. Anyway, she keeps writing that there's one more thing that's probably gonna leave him shook. Since her dad was tripping about Gil in his last letter, well, Gil just randomly decided to quit his job at the Verdi house. Maybe it's because he was really vibing with the Tiss Duchy after his quick trip. The Duke offered Gil a really sick job at the castle, which she is pretty sure was just to be nice to her. So as her dad can see, she's being treated like an actual queen with mad respect, so he doesn't need to be stressing. At the end of the letter, she's like, hope you're doing okay, miss you a ton, signing it Khloe Virger, daughter of Thomas Virger, just to be petty and get under his skin. So then she walks into a room and hears pool balls smacking together. The Duke's flexing about how he's on a heater today, scoring over 100 points. Khloe just straight up says he's cheating, and that he totally just messed up a point. Damon's like, hold on, didn't you say you didn't know the rules? If you were just lying to get out of playing me, I'm like actually disappointed. Ignoring him. She's just like, so why'd you call me in here in the middle of the night? If he's worried about her playing the Duchess part, he's about to learn there are zero problems. At all. And her relationship with the castle staff is way better now. The Duke hands the pool cue to Khloe, and she's like, you trying to play, he's down. But it's super obvious she knows there's a catch and asks what the stakes are. Our girl makes it clear she doesn't play games if she gets nothing out of it. He's low-key digging this side of Khloe he's never seen. So the Duke asks what she wants. Khloe lays down the law. If she wins, he has to quit it with the late-night invites to his room. The second he asks what happens if he wins, Khloe gets all flustered, and he can totally see she hadn't even thought that far. Feeling himself, the Duke says if he wins, he's taking something of hers. Khloe says, bet. 'Cause ain't no way she's taking an L on this. While they're going at it, the Duke is totally trolling Khloe, calling her out for a foul. And yet my guy is back in his mess with your crush era. Watching her play, Damon knew she was a total baddie. But once again, she just completely shattered his expectations. He slides up behind Khloe as she's lining up a shot and asks if she knows the whole point of this game is to basically get in your opponent's head until they choke. He mentions that in 2 days, a bunch of VIPs are showing up at the castle, so he hopes she brings her main character energy as Duchess to greet them. On top of that, the Marchioness Isabella is going to be there too. And just to be messy, the Duke says she's a peculiar woman. Then he suggests Khloe should probs be extra on point with her prep. At that exact moment, she takes the shot and completely fumbles it. And Damon with his smug-ass face goes, welp, looks like you lost. She totally fell for his little mind game hook, line, and sinker and got completely thrown off because he brought up the Marchioness Isabella. Our girl is still trying to process the absolute nerve of this dude bringing his literal side piece to his own crib. Still, riding the high of his win, the Duke says it's time for Khloe to pay up. She asks what he wants. Grabbing a strand of her hair, Damon says what he wants are her lips. Khloe is like, are you for real right now? But he swears he's never been more dead-ass about anything. While waiting for her answer, all Damon can think about is how badly he wants to see Khloe just pop off and let out all those feelings she's been bottling up like she's about to explode. Finally, our girl looks him in the eye. Getting closer, she says she's never felt so much pure disgust for someone before. The Duke just smirks and says, I'm honored. And then she kisses him. The second she pulls away, he's like, is that all you've got to say? When Khloe says she's got more, the Duke is like, bet I'm all ears. Totally hyped for her to finally snap. All Damon can think is that this is it. She's gonna scream at him and demand to know why he messes with her like this. Just dying to see her let it all out. But our girl has legendary self-control. She just takes a deep breath and asks if they're good here and if she can dip. You can totally see in her eyes that she's low-key bummed out. The second she leaves the room, seeing his plan totally flop, Damon realizes he majorly underestimated her, noticing that she gets under his skin way more than he ever thought. A few days later, all the invited ladies are at some bougie afternoon tea with Khloe while she's thanking them for making the long trek out to be there. Of course, the tea is piping hot, and Khloe, looking right at Isabella, welcomes her. The woman thanks her, saying she was worried her being there would be awkward for the Duchess, but her chill is next level, and Khloe says since Isabella is such a good friend of her husband, there's no reason for her to be pressed. Playing the victim, Isabella says it wasn't her choice to go through something that made her feel so trash, and the other women rush to comfort her. While crying her fake-ass tears, Isabella whines that she didn't know the world could be such a cruel place. Taking a deep breath, all Khloe can think is how effing ridiculous Isabella sounds talking about being miserable. Like, for real, who's more miserable here than the wife who has to play hostess to her husband's supposed side chick? Obviously, she can't say that out loud. So she just says that if Isabella isn't feeling well, she'll get a room ready for her ASAP so she can be comfy. Asking if she wants to bounce back to the castle. You can literally see the cap in her tea's reflection. Stepping onto the stage for her little performance, Isabella starts wailing, saying she just knew her being there was upsetting the Duchess and that she wasn't a welcome guest. Khloe tries to clap back, but it's too late, because all the other women are already whispering and the main gossip asks, "What's the tea?" They all try to awkwardly change the subject, and Khloe just says that the Marchioness was feeling a little off. So our girl's like, maybe you should head back to the castle. But Isabella, giving Damon the puppy dog eyes, is all, "I never should have come here. My only mistake was even showing up." Knowing the vibe people have about like widows and divorcees here. The other ladies jump in trying to be all supportive like, "OMG, no one thinks that it's not your fault your husband bit the dust. But it's a whole ass setup to make our Duchess look like the villain." The noble wannabes start complaining that an outdoor tea party in the middle of winter is like basically impossible for anyone to deal with. They're all like, "Actually, I'm not feeling so great either." One of them is even like, "My tea is literally an ice cube now." And Khloe's brain just goes ping asterisk, these two are 100% trying to take me down. It's probably because they can't handle a girl from a broke family who's also got a disability suddenly becoming the Duchess. Damon's just like, "I'll get a carriage for Isabella." And just as Isabella starts her whole, "Oh, I wouldn't want to ruin the party with my drama," Acton is about to take the Duke's offer. Khloe raises her voice all, "So sorry if I made you feel some type of way, but I wouldn't have invited you if I didn't want you here, girl. If you were feeling better?" Our girl says, "I'd be super stoked you came, but if you're still feeling sick, you're totally free to go chill," making sure all the other guests heard that loud and clear. So Khloe basically puts her on blast like, "So what's it gonna be, Isabella?" Realizing she just got totally called out, Isabella just mumbles that she's feeling better now and is sorry for causing a scene. As she leaves, she thanks everyone for being chill and says that dessert's on the way, it's pudding. But before she can dip, our boy Damian just has asterisk to add his 2 cents and say that pudding is Isabella's all-time fave. He's like, "Wow, my wife is so considerate." Khloe is so done with this, she just clenches her jaw and is like, "My pleasure," before bailing. The second our girl is out of there, Isabella drops the whole nice girl act, thinking, "Damn, did not see that coming. Playing this Duchess is gonna be way harder than I thought." Meanwhile, the nobles are still gossiping like, "Well, the Marchioness did know the Duke first. So like she kinda has a right to feel like her man got snatched." They're also whining. Plus, who even goes ice skating when it's this cold? It's so extra. But since we're leaving tomorrow, we just gotta deal with it a little longer for our husbands' careers. Hearing them say her man was snatched seriously gets under Isabella's skin. While our main couple is having a super cute moment on the ice, the villain is already scheming how to get her property back. And shocker, the complainers are now actually having fun skating. The Duke's like, "Awesome weather today, right?" And Khloe's like, "Yeah, everything's perfect, all thanks to you." Also low-key gassing him up for knowing she wouldn't just roll over. But she once, again, completely blew his mind. Getting kinda heated, she asks if he thinks this is all some big joke. She's like, "That was not easy, you know, if I let those other nobles talk down to me. I'd totally lose all my street cred as Duchess. And if that happened, it would obviously be a huge L for the Tissy family, which is why I couldn't just let it go. Just doing my job as Duchess like you're always on my case about." Damian calls her wife and asks if she's pissed at him. Khloe hits him back with, "If I was, I wouldn't be stupid enough to actually say it." This totally confuses the Duke. He's not picking up what she's putting down. So our girl has to break it down for him. "It's 'cause you literally have my life in your hands. I'd rather not get ditched in the middle of a frozen lake for getting on your bad side." Damian just starts dying laughing, saying no one makes him laugh harder than she does. Feeling kinda awkward, she just stays quiet. Some random noble comes up to the Duke and Damian's like, "I don't want to leave my wife by herself for too long, so make it fast." The guy starts saying sorry in case his wife said something to offend the Duke all, while Damian is trying to keep an eye on Khloe to make sure she's okay. The Duke is so annoyed this guy interrupted him just for that. And right then, the second he takes his eyes off Khloe, the other nobles start crowding her on the ice. Damian sees her totally zoned out and is like, "I wonder what's on her mind, and if I could just know what she's thinking. Would this crazy obsession I have finally just chill?" He's wishing he could see the world from her POV, analyze every single part of her, and just be the only one in her world. And then it clicks, is this all because he's actually falling for her? He thinks it's a wild idea since he's literally never felt this way about anyone before ever. It looks like someone's catching the feels, not wanting to waste another second on this dude. The Duke walks over and says, if you want to be forgiven, then you should have your wife go ask the Duchess directly, because you just wasted my time when I should be with my wife. In that split second, he wasn't looking at our girl. There's a huge cracking noise and someone screams that the Duchess is in danger. Khloe's on the ice, totally freaking out, trying not to fall into this hole that just appeared. But then even more of the ice shatters, and she falls right into the freezing water. As she's going under, Khloe has no idea how this even happened. She's just thinking, is this for real? Is this how I go out? And her last thought is just wanting to see her family one last time. The Viscount, Alice and Gil. For a hot second, even Damian pops into her head as she's passing out while someone pulls her out. The Duke, like crazy fast, gets her on the ground to start CPR. He's so relieved she's alive, but also seriously pissed, trying to figure out who would try to pull a move like that on his wife. A little while later, when she's chilling in her room, the doc is basically like, look, you need to take it easy. Cause she got insanely lucky the Duke got to her that fast. Like if he'd been even 1 second later, she would have probably been permanently messed up. The maid is like, I'm so glad you're okay, girl. But Khloe can't stop thinking about what went down right before it happened. I mean, for real, that chair didn't just fall over by itself. Someone 100% pushed it. And like it wasn't exactly rocket science to figure out who. Our girl asks the maid if all the guests dipped except for that Isabella chick. The maid's like, yeah, that girl straight up passed out when she saw how bad you looked. Khloe asks where she is now, and the maid starts acting super sus about it. But Khloe's just like, she just wants to have a word with her. No big deal. In another room, Isabella says she finally got a minute alone with the Duke, who, looking totally bored, says that since he's giving her his time, she needs to get to the point. Isabella's like, so just like we thought, Johannes's condition is getting a lot worse. And apparently the king is starting to suspect a rebellion is about to go down. On top of all that, the king is threatening to straight up ice Isabella if she doesn't drag the Duke back to the capital. So her genius plan is to have him lay low in some village in Winsbury while she feeds the king a story, saying the Duke like totally ghosted on the way to the capital. She gets all up in his space, swearing she'll protect him. And while she's all touchy-feely on his arm, Isabella tells him not to sweat it because she's got his back. The Duke puts his hand on her face and is basically like, you really think I'm just gonna dip to Winsbury just cause you said so? She tries to tell him that if he doesn't bounce, he's gonna be in some serious trouble. But Damian just points out that her skin is ice cold, you know, like her own personal lie detector. He also calls her bluff, saying there's probably a whole squad of goons waiting to jump him in Winsbury. He'd have to be a total idiot to walk right into a setup like that. Isabella tries to play innocent like she has no clue what he's talking about, but the Duke tells her to drop the act, cause watching her fake it is getting super cringe. He makes it 100% clear that he knows she backstabbed him and teamed up with the king. And from this moment on, all negotiations are off the table. Because of that, she's officially run out of moves. Cause if she can't get him to Winsbury, the king is probably gonna have her taken out. He warns her that this whole mess is on her. Isabella starts freaking out, saying if he hadn't just curved her and married someone else, none of this crazy stuff would have ever gone down. Damian's just like, that's insane. How could he have curved her when he never not for 1 second saw her as his girl, which makes calling it abandonment completely ridiculous. Her only gig was to be his fake side piece while he was digging up tea on the royal family. And that whole scheme would have been a total flop if Isabella wasn't part of the old queen's inner circle. Plus the Duke says he already paid her way more than enough for the job. He's like, did you actually think we were a real couple? Totally desperate. Isabella falls to her knees, grabbing the Duke's leg, crying that if she goes back to the king, she's dead meat for sure, begging him to forgive her and help her out. But the Duke is so not down to negotiate, and he tells Isabella she's gotta be tripping to think he'd flip his decision after she tried to have his wife unalived. Hearing that, Isabella totally freezes and backs away, saying it wasn't her, and that she wasn't even in the same zip code as the Duchess when it happened. But Damian knows it was her and warns her not to make him even madder with her bogus lies. With like 0 cards left to play, Isabella pulls her last move. She hugs the Duke, telling him she loves him, begging him to do literally anything to save her, pleading for help, and claiming the only reason she did all this psycho stuff is cause she loves him. The Duke fakes comforting her for a hot sec, then tells her it's way too late for all that, and that she needs to just get out of his face. And of course, poor Khloe shows up at the absolute worst moment, hearing Isabella's entire desperate confession, all about how she loves the Duke and needs his help. The second she hears that, Khloe tells the maid they should just bounce back to her room. And Damian, who heard the whole thing from inside, whips the door open, calling for Khloe, totally relieved to see she's up and about, but asking why she's not resting. Khloe's obviously hurt, but is trying so hard to play it cool. Our girl says she wanted to see Isabella and apologize for making such a big scene. Damian tells her that Isabella is in no state to see anyone right now. But before he can even get the words out, Khloe cuts him off, saying since he's here too, there's something she needs to tell him. And then she asks him to let her go back home to Verrier. And that is the tea, y'all. Hope you were vibing with the video. TBH, I don't know if I even stan Damian. Like, for real, I like him, but sometimes he does stuff that makes me seriously question his whole vibe. So yeah, this isn't your basic romance story. It's definitely got more of a mature feel to it. It has some seriously toxic moments and major red flags, but at the same time, it's beautiful. The art is absolute fire, so I'm completely torn. But I just want him to fall head over heels for her and get a little taste of his own medicine for everything he's put her through. Even though sometimes I feel like deep down he means well, even if she doesn't get it. What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments if you're feeling this series. I switched it up a bit this time, so I have 2 more vids from this series in the works, which I'll drop one by one to see if you're into it. This new format, cause I know you guys love a good continuation. This is a series that's actually finished. It's called Betrayal of Dignity, and in this video I covered up to chapter 26. So if you're really digging it, share, comment, and if there's a ton of feedback, I'll post the other parts as soon as I see you guys are blowing it up. So don't forget to smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, so you don't miss the next drops for this series. And if you're vibing with this format and show it a lot of love, I promise to create more formats like this. Kisses and catch you on the flip side.